This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development from a group of guys and one girl with lots of things in common. We love Drupal. Recorded live on Wednesday afternoons in a Google Hangout. Visit us at talkingdrupal.com. This is episode 61, August 27th, 2014. Today we're talking with Dani Girl. Hello, everyone.
How you doing?
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back, welcome back.
Dani's still muted.
Dani, you must unmute.
There we go.
Hi, I'm just like, hello, how are you? Oh, wait, big red mute. Hello.
I knew it had to be something because I've never heard you be that quiet before, Dani.
Shush. Shush you.
I could see her mouth moving.
Shush you, Jason.
Welcome to episode 61. We're happy to have Dani Nordin with us today. We've been trying to schedule this for maybe a month or so, and finally she had a Wednesday that opened up, which worked out great, so we're happy to have her. As usual, we also have Jason Palmental from H&W Design. Jason, you've been out and about busy lately. Are you finally settled down for a few days?
No, about 24 hours. We had a great trip with the family, dropping Trevor off back at school in Dickinson. So everyone say hi to TD Sports Facts, now broadcasting again from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And visited a few more schools with Phoebe. And I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Minneapolis to teach a workshop at Front End Masters on Friday on responsive typography.
Excellent. I'm glad you always arrange a schedule around this recording. We appreciate that. It must be the paycheck you're getting.
It's got to be it. It's got to be it.
We also have John Picozzi joining us once again from Oomph, and actually in his house today and not in the Oomph offices.
The
Welcome,
home
John.
office annex.
Yes, I am. I am coming to you live from Tiverton, Rhode Island today, which is lovely. A little warm for this time of year.
You know, it's funny because I think today's the hottest day we've had all summer.
It is actually the hottest
close,
day.
Right?
Yeah, it's up with the humidity. It's like up 90, 95 area, which is kind of crazy because usually this time of year it's starting to taper off a little bit.
But we've really had a cool summer, so no one's complaining here.
Nope, no complaints. I'm actually looking forward to a little bit of snow.
And speaking of complaining, we have Nick Laughlin. I have no idea why I said that.
What is this? I need to move to the left so I'm not the last one. Or, no complaints
You
here.
order the same all the time. How you doing, Nick?
Pretty good. Nothing to complain about today. A little bit cooler up here north, about an hour or so. But looking forward to talking with Dani and learning more about UX.
Nick, I'm jumping on your bandwagon at the end of this week. President Obama's coming to Newport, and I think I'm gonna try to figure out where he's going.
Okay. I mean, I had that experience 2 months ago, and I managed to come away a free man. Try to try to do the same.
I can't guarantee anything.
All right, so let's talk with Dani. So Dani's a UX designer and researcher at the Bentley User Experience Center in Boston, I believe that is.
Yes, Waltham, technically, but yes, it's in the Boston
Waltham
area.
Ah, I used to work in Waltham.
Oh, very nice.
So I know where that is, and I know what that drive was like every day from Providence. It was horrible.
Well, I live in Watertown, so it's a nice, 3-minute commute for me, so
Good for you.
I don't complain much.
Her title at Bentley is a UX lead. Is that correct?
No, so I'm a UX researcher and associate at the Bentley User Experience Center, which basically means I work on usability testing, UX strategy, surveys, all sorts of different research stuff. We're actually doing an academic research study next semester on the predictiveness of the ability of a bunch of different usability information architecture testing methods to actually predict the real success of what you would see on a live site. So is a tree test really as predictive as a usability test on a live site? So that's the kind of stuff that I do.
I can't wait to hear more about that. You are also an author of the Drupal for Designer series at O'Reilly.
Yes, I am.
Resulted in a number of books, right?
Yes, so it was 3 books originally. There was Planning and Managing Drupal Projects, I think was the first one that I came out with, and then there was Design and Prototyping, and then Drupal Development Tricks for Designers, which all of which were combined into the larger print book, which was Drupal for Designers. And that is focused very much on Drupal 7. They've already asked me to do another one for Drupal 8, but I explained to them how Drupal works and said that's going to be another year. So.
Right. Another year until you get to look at Drupal 8 officially, or another year until you can start a book?
Probably. Although, like, masochists like my coworker, my colleagues keep saying, yeah, let's totally build something in Drupal 8 today.
Yeah, I've been down that path twice already, and I've decided to wait a little bit longer. So you also are contributed to the definitive guide to Drupal 7. You shouldn't forget that as well, right? So I'm sure many people out there have heard of Dani. Your Twitter handle is Dani Girl. Mm-hmm. Any particular reason, Dani Girl, or is that just something you came up with?
I have no idea how that became my handle for everything. Like, I think it was like my AIM handle in the late 90s. And it just sort of stuck. And I was a big Ani DeFranco fan then, so like that's why it's the GRRL. And so I just, use it for everything I can.
Probably don't have too many issues with that being taken, I would imagine.
Oh, there's a question. Someone wants to see the scarf. So I just have to show.
It's like the never-ending scarf.
It is. Well, it is officially the Infinite Scarf of Gallifrey. So anyone who's a Doctor Who fan will know what I mean when I say a Tom Baker scarf. I am currently making a Tom Baker scarf for my best friend. It is now much taller than I am, but I don't know exactly how long it is.
So for those of you who are doing the audio version of this show, Dani we're on the Google Live Hangout, which you can always watch on Wednesday afternoons or 1 o'clock Eastern, or check it out on YouTube later. But Dani is actually knitting while we're talking, and it's the first time someone's done that. So we've actually had a new milestone met today on Talking Drupal, which is fun.
Well,
so the other thing I want to mention just before we finish talking about you in general is that today is a big day in your life, I believe. That your daughter is 2 years old today. So
yes, she is.
So congratulations to you and your husband, Nick.
Thank you. Yes, my little Bumpy is 2 years old this morning, and we took her out for pancakes and gave her a little tiara that said "Happy Birthday" on it.
I hope you let her have chocolate chip pancakes.
We so did. And right. She they do at the place that we go to. There's a kid's smiley face pancake. So they actually do like a smiley face with whipped cream and a strawberry and a couple of chocolate chips. And she just like sat there with a spoon and just attacked this whipped cream. It was adorable.
So things don't change. My daughter's going to college this weekend as a freshman, and her favorite breakfast is chocolate chip pancakes. So some things never change.
It's true.
So let's start talking about what it means to be a UX designer. I would think that a lot of our audience is more on the developer side, and I think most of us know what a UX designer is. I don't think that many of us, and maybe I'm speaking for myself, have had the opportunity to work on a project that we actually had a full-time or a dedicated UX person. It maybe happened once or twice in projects that I've been involved with that I've been able to interact with a person like that. So it'd be great to know and share what you do on web development projects.
So, the work that a user experience designer does really changes depending on the client and the project and what it is that they're trying to accomplish. I mean, I've had projects where I'm doing everything from usability testing to information architecture to like facilitating workshops so everyone can just get on the same page as to what on earth we're doing here. And I've had projects where all I'm doing is just moderating a couple of usability tests. And me and my team are just like putting together a mod guide, recruiting participants, just doing straight usability testing. I've also done projects that are just surveys. So there's a lot of different things that we end up doing. I think where I have the most fun is helping a group of people come to agreement on a shared vision and set of goals, and then helping them figure out all of the different steps they're going to need to make it to that goal. So, for example, with the community tools team, one of the first things that I did as UX lead of the community tools team on Drupal.org was work together on a shared vision for all of the different pieces of Drupal.org and the related properties that we essentially owned, and then started working with them to identify what are we prioritizing. Like, where I think we should go first is user profiles, because everyone has one. It's a big, like, it is who you are in the community. It's a really important thing, and it's a quick win for us.
What's happened with Drupal.org in the past few months?
In the last,
profiles? With
the profiles, so we went through the first big round of design was actually at Austin, at DrupalCon Austin. And we've sent it around for feedback multiple times over the last few months. We've been collecting feedback since then, and now we are actually at the 4th round of iterations. We're basically good to go, and we're starting to implement the profiles. So the technical migration of fields is starting to happen. The main thing that we need right now is a volunteer to actually create icons for the sort of contribution badges that are going to go in. But we've already identified a contributor who's going to help us with the theming. And he's actually been doing a lot of work on trying to make the theme on Drupal.org responsive, and we're going to see about using profiles as a first attempt at that. So it's coming together really nicely, and I'm enjoying the process. It's very different than, I had one design contributor tell me, oh, we have a fairly typical, it's a fairly typical UX process. I'm like, well, yeah, if your typical UX process involves waiting 3 months for feedback instead of like a couple days and moving through a project over the course of a year that's like fixing one page on the site, then sure, totally typical.
So Dani, I'd like to get a link from you, maybe if you could put it in the show notes, that we could share with everyone. If people are interested in learning more about what you're doing with the profiles on Drupal.org, where could they learn about that, or simply to get involved? If you could just put that link in the show notes here at some point.
Yes.
And we'll share it out. So back to being a UX designer, like for I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. How would someone learn more? How would you recommend them learning more about user experience to get themselves educated in that space? What kind of resources? How do you recommend people introduce that concept into projects if they're not doing it now? And I know everyone's doing it, and it just might not be a formal piece of what their project is. And how do you recommend moving forward with something like that if someone was looking to do it?
Well, I mean, the big thing is to just think about what Drupal forces you to do, just to use it. I became a UX designer when I realized that just in order to theme a site, I had to have my content types ready. In order to theme a menu, I had to know all of the links that were going to be in the menu, and content actually had to live in the system. As people who build Drupal sites, we do information architecture every day. We have discussions with our clients about what content they're going to have and what their strategy for that content, how they're going to enter in that content, what type of formatting their content is going to need every single day. All of that is UX.
It's something that I've always had a hard time getting people who are new to Drupal, shops in particular that have more of a development focus, to understand, because I think it's kind of impossible to separate design and IA and site building and theming into clean, separate elements, because they're so intertwined in terms of the markup, and then you need to have stuff in there in order to get something out, in order to think about how you might want to lay it out. I mean, it's a lot of chicken and egg and cart and horse and all that sort of muddled up metaphors.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it as both a strength and a weakness of Drupal. I mean, it makes it very difficult to scale development of a project or onboard somebody new. But it also forces, Drupal shops to break down those silos. Where I think we're leading the curve in making sure that designers and developers and UX designers are all in the very beginning of the project and communicating. Whereas typical waterfall or other agile processes, they still have them very first design happens and then UX and then development.
It's actually something that I think helps uncork a lot of issues in workflow if shops are really willing to embrace it. I mean, I've spent a bunch of time with shops teaching them about having their UX designers and information architects actually work on things in Drupal. I mean, if you're creating your content structure, go create the content structure in Drupal, and then have like the content people actually working in Drupal once they have things collected, so that you've built out these pages and now you're starting to put real content in there while we're thinking about theming and site building, so that it gets easier to tailor the markup and start adapting a theme, or a design into a theme. And all those things can be being worked on by separate groups of people. So you can actually have a lot of parallel things going on at the same time, and not have people blocked out. We've had a lot of success with that.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is, beyond that, the other thing is to do things like prototyping and testing, prior to development or shortly after development. Jason and I get into endless arguments about whether you should prototype in Drupal or not. And I tell him, when you have a menu that has 10,000 items and everyone in the frickin' university wants to argue about their item being in that list of 10,000, then you can talk to me about prototyping everything in Drupal. Until then... well, we went through that with Yale's graduate school, and are going through that. And we used TreeJack. Mm-hmm. But that was solely for the first testing of IA, and then it went straight into Drupal as a clickable prototype, and then we worked on it from there, so that we could actually test it out and see how it felt.
Jason, what's TreeJack?
TreeJack is a really nifty tool that will allow you to build out your navigation, your site architecture as a series of clickable screens, and then you can create tests, and then actually have people go through and give them tasks, and they can click through, they see a list of the top level navigation, they can click on one and see what's next, and TreeJack will actually track where they go, and so that way it can let you know how easy or difficult it was for people to find things that you set out for them to find.
Yeah, and it also covers both whether they found it and also the directness by which they found it. So it could be that 75% of people found it, but only 30% found it the first time.
Right.
Or the route they took to get there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it visualizes all that stuff for you, which makes it really easy to kind of analyze what's going on, and also share it with the clients so they can actually see where things are working and where they're not. And really,
clients love those freaking graphs that they do. They annoy the crap out of me. I once had to do a study where we were doing 20 tasks across 3 different information architectures. 20 tasks across 3 different information architectures and comparing the 3 different, how each of these different architectures performed on these 20 tasks. And I literally had to sit there and copy and paste these frickin' graphs into a PowerPoint presentation. I thought I was going to die.
Second goal today. We've just hit 2 frickins in one show. We never did that before.
Well, that's what happens when you have me on.
I think it was actually 3, Steve.
Was it 3?
Because I'm super classy. I'm a super classy Rhode Islander.
You're from Rhode Island. You went to school in Providence, did you?
Right? Yeah, we actually went to the same school nearly at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep, and neither of us finished.
That was going to be my question.
Neither of us finished Rhode Island College.
There was a high completion rate that year.
Well, yeah. I completed Rhode Island College. I graduated.
Well, 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And the 2 that didn't finish are both published authors.
Well, to be fair, I also went back to Leslie, finished my undergrad, and now I'm getting a master's. So.
Okay, there you go.
She has more appetite for that than I do.
I do.
So just talking about TreeJack and the exploration of the navigation and doing user testing, what size website do you think requires doing some of these things at the level of getting like a third-party tool involved? Do you have a sense of?
I mean, honestly, any size site can benefit from that. Like, if you have 3 pages on your site, then okay, maybe you can get away with it. But like most sites, like college sites, for example, any kind of school site, you need to have that kind of testing, and it's very rare that it gets done. There are hundreds of links. There are and nothing is where it should be. Like, for example, the User Experience Center, which is where I work. I'm working here while I'm getting my master's degree. And this center is a corporate entity, a for-profit entity that lives within this school. Mm-hmm. We are a huge profit center for the school. You cannot find us anywhere on the goddamn Bentley website.
Mm.
You have to go to like academics and then centers. So it's listed under academics, even though we're not really an academic arm of the institution.
You're actually providing a service to other businesses and stuff, right?
Yeah, we're actually a corporate consultancy.
Right. So you don't have your own website?
We don't have our own website, and we're apparently not allowed to, which I think is funny. But whatever.
So
not my circus, not my monkeys.
So a question that I have then is how do I, now you're obviously a benefit to the school. How do I sell your services to my clients? I mean, I understand the value of a strong architecture and good UX, but a lot of times if a client doesn't have commerce on their website, they won't see the value of making it necessarily easier to find. In fact, I've had clients tell me before that they don't care if their users have to click find times, they can find it. It's not a problem. How do you educate your clients to the value of the service?
I think I'm slightly different than a lot of people in that I just tell them this is how we do it.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to do it, then maybe we shouldn't work together. Like I'm a big believer in there's a way these things get done. You can afford to do it wrong. Absolutely.
So I think Nick's question is really more on positioning from the project inception and scoping, which is maybe not the place that you're sitting in, Dani. You're not out selling your services, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not doing much of the selling anymore because I'm an associate of the center. But like, my bosses have to sell, what they do. But like, for example, one project I did, and it doesn't have to be like super intense usability testing, but one project I did for Berklee College of Music, I was trying to understand how people searched for other people on campus using the campus directory because we had to redesign it. So I actually went to a few of the people who were in my building who were users of this directory, and I asked them to show me, like, if you need to, let's say that you need to meet with somebody and you forgot where their office is, how would you look for them here? Had them show me, and then went back to my desk, did a quick paper prototype, brought it to them, and had them show me again. So let's say this is your interface. How would you search for them here? And we went through that. They pointed out a couple of issues that I had missed. And I went back, prototyped it in Azure, which is the prototyping tool that I use, and then brought that to them and said, okay, so let's say now that this is the interface that you're going to use, and you have a meeting and you need to find that person and where they sit. Starting from here, where would you go first? And then you're basically doing a usability test with them. And now we've got 3 rounds of iterations that happened literally in a day. Contextual inquiry, paper prototyping, usability testing, all of this happened within a day. And because I was able to do this, we were then able to show this to the IT department, which was responsible for building it, and say, this is what we're going to do with the directory. We've tested it with people in this very building. We've done, rounds of usability testing, yada, yada. And we went from, 6 months prior getting all the flack ever from departments around the college about how none of this would ever work and how their stuff needs to be front and center to, all right, let's do it.
I think a lot of it does come down to simply the positioning at the outset. I mean, it's not, when something's not presented as an option, it's simply part of what happens, then that's what happens. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody questions the steps that, Nick, that you're taking in development because they expect that you know what you're doing and you're going to take the steps that are necessary to take. When you present design as an equally essential part of that process in order to make sure that you're building the right thing, then you get far fewer questions about that. And it's simply a matter of sort of changing the way you talk about it. And if they don't want to hire you for that stuff, then that's certainly okay, and you can then make the choice. Do you still want to take the job or not? And we've taken the tack. I mean, Ellen and I have just decided not. We don't take work that people come to us with that's just development, because that's not our best strength, and we've just found that we end up usually getting something that already has a lot of missteps, and we don't want to be stuck trying to fix that stuff later on.
Yeah, and I've had enough experience trying to clean up other people's development messes that, like, my goal in 2015 is I'm not coding anymore. I let other people code for me.
I mean, I think...
I will code my own websites, but no more. No more of anyone else's.
We all have our share of horror stories of picking up somebody else's half-done development project, and it's to say nothing of picking up somebody else's Drupal project. And even if it's somebody that you know and you think probably would have done a great job, I still can't quite figure out exactly why things were done the way they were done with the latest one that I inherited. And, shame on me. I should have known better.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone who wants to do more of usability testing and these kinds of things up front, how do you recommend? Do you have any resources that someone could look at?
Sure.
I know that I've looked at and read Steve Krug's book.
Don't Make Me Think is a decent one.
Right.
Communicating Design by Dan Brown is a great, Bible for every design deliverable you can think of. site maps, personas, concept flows, user flows, like everything that you could possibly imagine. He walks you through all of them, why you would use them, when you would use them, and how to sort of enhance the format. There's another one I like called Undercover User Experience Design. And that one's really nice because I think it speaks to a lot of the challenges that Nick was talking about, and that I hear a lot in Drupal shops, especially when we're dealing with like some of the smaller ones. Oh, our clients don't have the budget for user testing. I won't get into the logic behind that statement, but it sort of speaks to a lot of those questions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that simply comes back to what people think is involved. And when you can explain to them the concept of paper prototyping and saying, if you can't afford to have me not spend 3 hours doing this. Yeah. Again, it's a lot of it.
You can also not make it an option, right? It's a part of what your design process is, and
we talk about that.
A designer is successful in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something, and that's why I made the comment earlier. Like, this is actually. This is my process. This is how it works. If you want to work with me, that's how it goes. I will certainly buckle down and code with the best of them, but you don't want me to do code without testing it because you're going to hate the site, your users are going to hate the site, and you're going to blame me.
And it's your fault, though, by the way, right? Isn't it?
Always my fault. I just make them a scarf. And then they're fine.
Everything's all better.
Is that because you've tied them up with it and they can't actually complain anymore? Or?
Jason, that was between us.
I guess we need to move on then.
So Dani, I actually have a question about you were talking about user experience or user testing and not having the budget for it. What happens if a client comes to you with and saying, oh, we've already done our user testing, here are the results? Are you inclined to take that and run with it, or are you going to say, well, we got to do our own user testing?
I look at the protocol that they use. So I want to know, like, what tasks did you have them go through? What section of the site did you test? The thing about user testing when it's done right is it's an iterative process. So if you imagine a typical Drupal project, most Drupal shops, if they're doing it right, are breaking up their projects by a chunk of functionality. So we've got hey, why are you saying usability testing, not user testing? Did I say user testing?
Yes.
Whatever. The same. They're used interchangeably, dear.
Anyway. I just don't like the connotation of the phrase.
Okay, fine. Whatever. So.
We can get to that hang up a little bit later in the show.
Exactly. He's telling me about tying up with scarves and then like telling me he doesn't like me saying the word user testing. Okay. I understand how this is. So anyway, so most shops who are doing it right are breaking up their work by a chunk of functionality. Like, here's the events, here's the shopping cart, here's the wada. And the goal is to actually incorporate testing into each round of development. So when you get the events page done, you have some tasks that are related to using that particular section of it, and then you run a round of usability tests to see if there's any problems with it. Can they find it? Can they find the tags? Can they understand what they're reading? And then test it. The results of that test should go into the next sprint. So if someone comes to you with results of a usability test, you'd want to know what section of the site they actually tested, what audiences. So you want to know a little bit about who they actually had as participants of the test, how many people that they talked to, and what were the main findings. But usually you're not going to have people who like hand you a test report and they're like, here, now go deal with this.
Okay. So you basically review everything, and if it's valuable, you keep it. If not, you redo it.
Well, I mean,
Which is,
sometimes you might redo it, but the point is more that any usability test results, like you're never going to be able to test a whole site. So any usability test report you get will always be for a portion of the site, not for a whole site. And so it should be incorporated into whatever you're doing in the context of that piece of the site.
I think the trickiest thing that you run into there is actually communicating back to the client exactly what it is they have and what it covers. Because I think oftentimes they'll have that in their hand, and if they didn't do the work themselves, they may feel like, oh, well, this is it. This is everything I need. And needing to be delicate about either the quality of the work or the quantity of it, or like as Dani said, like what it covers, can be tricky, to say the least, to do that in a way that doesn't cause a fuss.
Yeah, and there are clients that get it, and clients that they think that that usability testing is something that happens at the end of the project. And one of the approaches that we advocate is no, it should not be just at the end. It has to be beginning, middle, end, like early and often.
Dani, do you think that usability testing and user testing has changed over the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 years with the advent of mobile devices, and how does that play into this? Because I can see that after Dan Brown finished writing the Da Vinci Code in 2003, he then wrote Communicating Design in 2006. So that book that you referenced is a great resource.
Those are the same writers.
Yeah, that's a joke. One's Dan M. Brown, but he wrote that book in 2006. So
yeah,
that's 2 years prior to the iPhone. I mean, do the techniques and things still exist, or what's changed with the way the world has changed in the past 4 or 5 years?
The biggest things that I've seen in terms of changing is the technology that you use. Like the basic idea of a concept map or a site or application map or whatever, or like some kind of flow diagram that shows you how to get from point A to point B has not changed. The idea that there must be architecture for whatever it is that you're building, and that you have to understand the users of the thing that you're building in order to create something for them has not changed. But definitely what we're seeing is a huge shift in the technology that we're using. So, for example, at our lab, we have a lot of software that's designed to capture the screen and audio from the computer. But if you're doing mobile, you have an entirely different set of constraints, and it's not necessarily going to be dealing with the computer at all. So we had to find different ways of actually testing things on a mobile device, using like cameras and technology and this like TriCaster recording and like all of this fancy gobbledygook. But there's also, I think it's called an SDK that you can, and I don't know I don't remember what it's called, but you can actually build it into your app so that you can do user testing from an iPhone app using the camera from the phone to record the face.
Okay.
So, like, I don't know if it's the standard developer kit. There's something, I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically this thing that you plug in to your app's code.
So you shouldn't be ignoring, people should not be ignoring the multiple devices that we have today when it gets to user testing, right?
Oh, not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
So 30-second answer. I'm not going to let you go longer than this because I think it's going to take more than that. So quick answer. What do you think about the hamburger?
People still don't know what it is yet.
Okay.
It's gaining traction, but people still don't know what it is.
We're not referring to a bacon cheeseburger, right? We're referring to the navigational element.
Well,
yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the bacon cheeseburger?
I'm a fan.
Okay, me too.
I enjoy myself a good bacon cheeseburger.
With or without beer?
Oh, little column A, little column B.
Good answer. Good answer.
I got a quick question. What's the number one pitfall that websites, both not just general websites and Drupal specific websites, fall into when it comes to usability test? Usability. What's the number one thing that you see every single website, and you just shake your head?
Great question.
Like in terms of things that should die in a fire?
Sure.
I suppose, but also things that are just really easy to fix too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The obvious thing everyone's overlooking all the time.
So, I mean, one thing that people overlook is the way that color impacts design and the way that you look at something. So, like, I see a lot of people who focus very much on bright colors, and like green is especially a problematic color right now on certain screens. I don't know if you've noticed this, Jason. There's this like lime green that everyone loves using, and it looks horrendous on every screen. And like they're constantly using it, and as a matter of fact, it's on Drupal.org right now, which is driving me a little batty.
I think officially it's called Startup Green.
Yeah, and it's literally like this sort of lime green that's always against a white background. Like it's white text against this background. The super skinny fonts is the other thing that drives me nuts, especially when they're reversed. Because it's just, you cannot read it. And people forget that the web is supposed to be about legibility.
Yeah, I think sort of like in general, you could lump it in under contrast issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like foreground, background, color, font and background. I mean, interestingly, there was something I saw recently at a conference in somebody's session about accessibility, and it turns out that the recommendation of 85% contrast between foreground and background often produces results that are actually harder to read for people with some color blindness and dyslexia. And actually a slightly softer amount of contracts tend to work better. So I mean, it's fascinating that even if you try and go by what are sort of like legal guidelines or standards in these areas, it's not always the right answer, and it's not always enough. I posted an article in from the Pastry Box that's actually written by Ann Gibson, a friend of mine who's an incredibly talented writer, but like really knowledgeable in this area. And I think a lot of the things that Dani talked about really kind of like fall into a lot of issues in accessibility that we really don't think about that much. That because we're all disabled in some way at some time, and it's often a lot more than we realize. Even if it's something like I'm just not using as good a display, so the font's not rendering, and it's really spindly and hard to read because I'm on an older system.
Yeah, or like my favorite is like the tiny font that's really thin against a dark background. And like
Apple.
Design agencies love to do that.
Yeah.
And I just want to smack them all upside the head because like no, just stop.
Yeah, or light gray on white. That's also another favorite. In Helvetica New.
Oh.
Sorry, Helvetica Neue.
John, Jason, stop picking on me. I mean, enough is enough now.
But I mean, even though, like, I mean, one of the biggest problems that we have with Drupal, and I still don't think we've solved it in Drupal 8, although I think we're getting closer. Screen readers read all those divs. All those divs. All those nested divs.
Speaking of panels.
One of my favorite moments at the UX Boston conference was so I did my session, and Jessie Beach, formerly of Acquia, now of Backupify, was the next presenter, and she did a session on accessibility in which she did live development and showed us like how to deal with ARIA landmarks and ARIA roles and labeled by and like some of the declarations. And she actually had a screen reader read just a basic, like just simple page that was put together in Bootstrap. And it was just like a couple of input boxes and, a form. And it says div, 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 div. Like just for a minute, it just reads the word div over and over and over again.
Dani, I'd like to ask you about. You made a comment there that said, "I don't think this is addressed in Drupal 8."
Not well enough.
Well, but I'm not sure that we know yet, actually, because I think like the final shape of what we can do in theming it is not really quite clear yet.
And can we back up from Drupal 8 to Drupal 7? Would you all agree that if you wanted to get rid of, if it was your objective to get rid of all those divs in Drupal 7, that you have the capability of doing that?
Well, yes.
Right.
But I think that, 7 and 8, because I've been doing quite a bit of 8 theming, like in the last few weeks. Both of them require either, doing a whole lot of pre-processing or creating new templates. And one thing that's nice about 8 is that you kind of know where all the templates are once you've been introduced into the secret society of people who know where the templates are.
And we have a link in the show notes to get to that membership ID. You can just look in the show notes later. You're just gonna need a promo code that we'll give you later.
There's a golden ticket inside 5 candy bars.
Right.
Also, we should mention there's a theme out there for Drupal 7 whose maintainer absolutely loathes and despises divs. That theme is
Mothership. Mothership.
There was that one, but I was thinking of another one. But okay, that one.
He was thinking of one that began with a B.
Was it basic?
I was giving Jason a softball and he whiffed big time.
Well, I think Jason, isn't the Beep Edition theme, which we've talked about here, that you maintain, isn't some of the work in there based on Mothership?
Yeah, a lot of the ideas come from Zen and from Mothership, and it just the whole idea was to try and simplify what's there, and it ties into modules that we've talked about or will talk about that just give you access to more of the proper HTML tags, and that's actually the thing that I think has been lacking the most in Drupal in the past, and I think is starting to come into it, is really smart and proper use of the right HTML structures. So making sure that when something is semantically a label, it's marked as a label, and not as some like miscellaneous H3. That kind of stuff is there all the time, and by having people who are real students of front-end development look at it, people like John Albin, who's like heavily involved in that, huge strides have been made. And I mean, like Dani said, it's not perfect, it's not all the way there, but I think it's worlds better, and it is all within our reach in theming Drupal 8 more so than it has been in the past. At least that's what I've seen so far.
Dani, some general impressions since we mentioned Drupal 8?
Mm-hmm.
General thoughts, just overall.
So I've been working with Stephen Fisher and Stefan Corliss at Score on the site for the Information Architecture Summit. And Score made the masochistic decision that we were going to do this in Drupal 8 because we both have toddlers, and I feel like that's a useful thing for us to spend time doing, is doing things in Drupal 8. My first impression is that, honestly, I think they've really refined they've really taken the work that was done in 7 and refined it quite a bit in a good way. I really like the way that you create content now. I think that there's some things that they still need to figure out. The block system is kind of ridiculous now.
ridiculous in a good way?
No, not in a good way.
Uh-oh.
Like, it took me forever to figure out how to edit the text in a custom block because it was hidden in an entirely different tab on the same page. So I think that there's still like little things like that that need work. But I think the overall experience is a lot better. I think that the theming experience is going to ultimately be a lot better. But when I was playing with it most recently, like, we got into a situation where it would not recognize any theme that I created. And it would give me bizarre errors every time I tried to upload my theme. And so it took me like 4 or 5 tries before we finally got a theme that actually, worked and stuck. And now, at this point, it's actually easier for me to just create my own theme from scratch than it has been to use a base theme. So I think,
to be fair, right? And to be fair, we're not in beta yet.
Yeah, like, we're not even in beta yet.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So, yeah.
I think that if what I see now is any indication, I think the theming experience is going to be a lot easier than it is in 7.
Great.
A friend of mine said that one of her colleagues likened Drupal 7. No, Ethan Marcotte, actually. She said she talked to Ethan Marcotte, and he likened Drupal 7 theming to knowing Sumerian.
Okay. I didn't know Ethan knew that much about Drupal.
Apparently, he knows that
Okay.
he knows that
He
we're
does
not
Marion
Sumerian.
for that matter.
So let's talk before we close out the show. We love to get some thoughts on your recent conference that you organized in Boston called Design for Drupal, which is a
Yes.
conference that is designer focused for the Drupal audience, which is just a great marriage and probably a much needed strategy throughout the country, not just in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that conference go? I attended it. It was fantastic.
Thanks.
I think everyone on the
Yeah.
call today was there.
Yep.
Jason was.
Jason actually stepped on last year as one of the co-organizers. So
Right.
he and I worked very closely together. I'm apparently the cat herder. I sort of crack the whip when it needs cracking. But like, the thing that was great is we had fantastic people, dedicated people who stepped up when needed. We had CJ Inge, who's an incredible digital marketer, and she really helped us get the word out. Jason was fantastic about, Jason and I basically just plugged the hell out of this event at DrupalCon, and then just started poaching sessions. Just like, ooh, this looks like a good design session. Want to do it here? This looks like good. Want to hear? But we really managed to get the word out between Jason and I and Ken Woodworth from Atten, Patrick and the folks at Redfin, just all of the people, Susan McPhee of McPhee Design Group. We all just pounded the pavement at DrupalCon and got people excited about this event. Again, we've been slowly gaining momentum, and I think this year we really hit a tipping point.
When I think that the thing that I felt was most successful, and I heard a lot of other people kind of echo this back, which was really gratifying, was that we took a pretty hard line on what we would accept, and not in terms of just quality, but subject matter. We really kept it very focused, and I think that really paid off. And then we played around with the schedule for hours, trying to balance it out so that there was a good blend of beginner and advanced, and technical and design, front end and design in any given time slot. And that was, it was nice to see people in the sessions. I mean, it's good. It's always good to have a hallway track, but it's always nice to see people not be able to step away, and the rooms were full, which is great.
Yeah. And it was also like, we had a couple of people who hadn't presented before, who like the perfect amount of people in that room for the introvert who's never presented before. Like my session was smaller, but that's okay because I don't want more than 20 people in this room.
Or the extrovert that's never presented before.
Oh, that's been me a few times.
Who wears a baseball hat with the Bruins with the Red Sox on it, right?
Yes, but no, I mean it was a really fantastic event, and we can't wait for next year.
Yeah, it definitely was a huge hit. So anyone listening, even if you're not in the Boston, New England area, it would really be worth coming out and checking out. It's a perfect time of season to be in the Boston area. The venue is second to none at MIT.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great place to be. So
and it's across the river from Fenway.
Yeah. Do you have a date for next year? Just curious.
So we won't be able to. It will be next summer again. Mm-hmm. But we cannot announce any dates until after January because that's when we know when MIT will let us back on campus.
Yeah.
It's the first year I was able to attend because you switched the weekends. I mean, the last 2 or 3 years it was on the same weekend, which is like the worst weekend for me every year.
Yeah, well,
this year it changed and it was like perfect.
Another one of the reasons why we can't announce anything too soon is we have to know when the U.S. DrupalCon event will be.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this year, DrupalCon Austin took place like literally the week before it would have normally been D4D. And we always get a lot of people from outside the Boston area who present great sessions that we want to have come to Boston and speak, and that's just too much. It's just too much to ask of people. So needing to have a little breathing space there.
Breaking news, actually, I think this came out last week, but LA DrupalCon is going to be May 11th to the 15th.
Nice. Good to know.
Sweet.
So,
we'll keep that in our little...
Everybody out there that didn't know that, now you know.
Our little hat.
So in the true Drupal spirit, when I was first considering kicking off the New England Drupal camp, someone, I don't know who it was, it might have been Jason, recommended, I think it was Nick actually, recommended I give Dani a call and spend some time with her on the phone. Dani and I had never spoken. She had no idea who I was. But I sent her an email and she's like, yeah, I'd be more than happy to spend time with you. Within 2 weeks or a week, we spent maybe an hour and a half on the phone getting her input into how to put a camp together. So thank you for that, Dani.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
That's the kind of support we do.
I hate talking.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, I'm supposed to put you on the spot and make sure that you're actually coming to Nude Camp, right?
Yes. It's not happening at the same time as Amsterdam, right?
No, it's a month later.
Okay, then yes, I will be there.
Okay.
Yes, I know for some rock stars who are going to Amsterdam to present 2 sessions, they'll be busy.
Well, yeah, 2 sessions that will probably be like half empty because one of them's a core conversation and no one goes to those.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, well, it is about getting more designers into Contrib, so.
Well, that's good. Those sessions have been getting more and more attraction, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time to be a designer in the Drupal community. I don't think that we've quite reached critical mass yet. I think that we're still working on the tools that we need to actually make design Contrib happen. But there's clearly a commitment there, and there's clearly a drive to find new ways to represent what we do as contributors. So that's something I've been really excited to be a part of.
So anyone going to Amsterdam in October, sometime in October, look up Dani. And she might have some scarves with her. We're not sure. I think we've contributed to a foot of this scarf today.
Yes,
that's my guess. Maybe a foot and a half.
Up to here. And so now I'm adding the red. So I've got the red now. I just finished the brown.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
So this show has been about UX and design in a way which leads us right into our module of the week, which we offered for Dani to recommend one. And she talked about she recommended fences, which I know Jason is also a fan of. We may have mentioned in the past, but it is certainly not a module of the week. So Tell us about Fences.
Fences is this beautiful little module, and I used to use if you've ever used semantic fields to sort of change the markup of your fields, it's similar to that. But the difference is that Fences allows you to set up the HTML that your field will output in the actual field generation. So like I'm making a field called body. I want it to have no wrapper. And I can set that up right as it stands. With semantic fields, you had to like go into a GUI and then like create your types of field wrappers and then do something over here. With Fences, you just plug it in and it says, what do you want this to be? And it is absolutely beautiful. It overrides a whole lot of like what field.tpl does to you, which, by the way, is one of the problems in Drupal 8 that I was telling you about the divitis. The field template is still awful, just downright awful, and I haven't been able to figure out how to make it not awful yet.
And one of the things we've talked about, I think on this show, I'm not sure now, but is, we'd love to be in a space in Drupal 8 that we're not putting code in to undo things.
Oh,
right? That's the space we'd love to be in terms of creating great HTML markup.
Well, I think that's going to be where work in the core templates and then work in your own core sort of like starting base theme. I think it's going to be in one of those two places, and hopefully it will all eventually move back into like what is in core to have a more minimalistic add to it approach rather than tearing it down every time you have to start something new.
Yeah, and I also think that one of the things that is nice about Drupal 8 now that I've started playing with the twig templates a little bit is once you have the, here are the variables, here are my regions, you can do something like have a kit like Mixture or Bourbon or like any of these different frameworks, and you can wireframe in that and then take that HTML code and turn it into Drupal templates relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And that I think is, where I see Drupal 8 going. Like the process that we're going through now with IA Summit is very similar to that. Basically, Steve is just putting together HTML wireframes, and I'm trying to sort of put that into template systems. So, doing something like that and putting together an actual design system that then gets put into a custom bespoke template and you just have your variables that you plug in, I think is the way that we're going to start going.
I have to get it posted as a PDF, but the one session that I gave at D4D this year was an intro to using Twig, and it has a lot of stuff that Dani's talked about in there for you to play around with and some tips. So I'll make sure that I get that turned into a PDF today and get it added to the show notes.
As a side note, Jason, some of those talks were actually recorded, and I just got an email this morning saying that the Design for Drupal videos are up on their YouTube channel, so you can also check those out.
Cool.
And I know there's one up there of Steve giving his talk, so you can check that out.
Absolutely.
Right, we've come to the end of episode 61.
Yay!
Here we are. We actually made it to the end. So anyone listening,
we have a nice scarf to show for it.
And we have a scarf to show. So we're going to raffle it off at the end of the show if anyone would like to.
No. This has been a lot of work, and my best friend will actually hurt me if this goes to someone else.
Hey, anyone listening out there who would like to reach out to us to ask a question or make a comment, you can always email us at talkingdrupal@gmail.com. We're also always online at Talking Drupal on Twitter. You'll see some tweets come out there on a regular basis, and we always let you know when we're launching live. So, and anything you could do for us on iTunes, if you appreciate the content we're giving you, give us a good rating over there. I have no idea what that does for us, but it's fun to see the ratings come in. So we appreciate anything you do there. Jason, where can people find you online? Do you have anything to tell us about in your upcoming schedule?
Well,
and keep it under 5 minutes.
yeah. Very briefly, at J Palmentel pretty much everywhere. Back at Turner Reservoir this morning and tomorrow with Tristan, which was really nice. And online on the web, hwdesignco.com, and in person. Or you can actually sign up online to view it online if you want to learn about responsive typography. That workshop is Friday. And then I'm doing another webcast again with O'Reilly on September 10th.
Excellent. John, how about you?
I will be at next month's Newport Interactive Marketers, giving a talk there. So if you're in the Newport area, come on down and see me.
Do you know what the date is on that, John?
Do not yet. If you type in Newport Interactive Marketers into Google, their website will come up, and you can check back for the date. Should be towards the end of the month, I think. As far as me, you can find me on all the social networks at John Picozzi and always on at oomphinc.com.
Nick.
You can find me online at Nixvan, Nicxvan, pretty much everywhere, and I'm sure in the Providence area for the next meetup, or Boston as well.
And how about you, Dani? Tell us where would you like people to look you up, or would you prefer they don't? You just let us know.
Oh, goodness. So I am Dani Girl on Twitter and Drupal.org.
And that's girl with 2 R's, G-R-R-L.
2 R's, yes.
Okay.
I am going to be speaking at DrupalCon in October. I'm also going to be speaking at Vitamin T's digital, I think it's like the Digital Talent Mixer at McGreevy's on September 18th. So that should be fun. And I will also be just sort of generally hanging out at Drupal Nights at BioRaft in Cambridge, right off of Kendall Square.
That's always a really good meetup.
Oh, yes. It's a very, very fun meetup. A lot of very good
people. Go to
work
Amazon.com and search for Dani Nordin, right? And
Yes.
find your books there.
Yes, and you can find Drupal for Designers there.
Oh, actually, you know what? We should mention and put a link in the show notes. O'Reilly is having a huge sale on ebooks that would include Dani's and mine.
That is true.
You can get.
And there will actually be a book signing. I will be doing another book signing at Amsterdam DrupalCon.
Cool.
So hopefully that line will also be longer than the free beer line.
Good luck with that.
That was a good sight to see. In Austin, it was quite a raft of people waiting for her to sign the books.
Yes, it was.
That's cool.
It was pretty impressive. It stretched out to the free beer line.
Good for you. All right, I'm Stephen Cross at Stephen Cross on Twitter with a PH, or parallaxinfotech.com, and we'll call this a wrap for episode 61. And thanks everybody for your time. Thank you, Dani, and we'll talk to everyone next week.
See you later.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, that was the wrong music. We'll try that again. This is the out music.